Corporate Parenting Committee. My name is Councillor Abi Akibong, and I'm the chair of this committee. As this evening is being held at Busy Community Resource Center instead of the council chamber, there's a time limit for the use of the venue, which is until 9:30 p.m. If the item on the agenda are not concluded by 9:30 p.m., we will adjourn this meeting and recommence at the next Corporate Parenting Committee in the new municipal year. If this happens, we will look to adjourn once a report has been concluded and before the start of the next report on the agenda. I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting is being recorded for publication on the council website. Officers attending virtually on Microsoft Teams, please use the raise your hand option when you wish to speak, and Kina will note this down and will let me know. Apologies for absence. I have not received any apologies for absence. Kina, have you any apologies been received?
Thank you, Chair. There's been apologies from Councillor Smith.
Thank you. I move with the minutes of the Corporate Parenting Committee meeting held on the 4th of January 2022 be approved as a correct record. Are there any comments on the accuracy of the minutes? The minutes are approved. Subject to the amendment, the minutes are approved. The Vice Chair has agreed to the reports from the Independent Reviewing Officer as an urgent item. This was circulated to all members last week. I suggest we take this report after item 6. Declaration of interest. Does anyone wish to declare a declaration of interest? Item 5, Children in Care Council updates. Can I ask Christopher and Laura to introduce the report?
So this report is quite isn't sort of in date. It's for the past 12 years, but it was obviously for the past year, but it was written in September. So obviously there's been quite a few changes and stuff, but Christopher wanted to be here when we went through it. So I don't know if you want to give a brief. Would you, as a council, would you prefer that we read the whole report, or would you prefer there was like a small update?
I'm happy with the Christmas happy with.
Yeah, this is So basically, this report sort of states that over the last 12 months, due to COVID and due to restrictions, obviously the CICC went online, and we were still open to the Care Council was still open to anybody in care between the ages from 11 plus, and I think that if I'm right in saying that it was right up to 25, because then there was support from older members who had left care that could support the young members. In there, obviously, I took over from Annie in November, so this report was written before. So, but from I've read it quite a few times, and from speaking to Christopher and other members, they sort of said that there was quite a lot of consultation done over that year about different things about the big wide world. There was members of the council coming in, doing little doing little talks and asking questions. Unfortunately, it does sort of state as well, the CRCC couldn't be what it should be because of the restrictions. Before the restrictions were in place, meetings were face to face. They obviously then went online. So there was also that, well, you can see that in the numbers of people that were attending. The recruitment we literally went to zero nearly, because it was by word of mouth. Well, there wasn't really much word of mouth over that year because everything was online. So there tended to be not as many opportunities for young people to have talk to other young people about it. It was only ever coming from adults. And from our consultation, young people tend to join when they've spoken to another young person rather than their social worker encouraging them to go. So obviously there is look for that to be completely revamped and rebooted from now. So so I think most of you are aware, but yeah, the CRCC was just to provide a service, commission service, which is obviously run by Open Door, that the young people have an opportunity to express their views, talk about any grievances, talk about any sort of worries, but also a group of young people who are able to give their voice back in meetings like this, which is why it's important that Christopher's here and is able to and supports in writing the report, in writing minutes, in arranging meetings and discussing who comes and things like that. Anything else that needs to be? And yeah, the only other thing is as well, yeah, it does say that obviously the CRCC is from the age of 11 plus. Over the past 12 months, the CRCC members the majority were 16 plus. I think most of it being because it was online, keeping focus, a young person to be able to keep focus on Zoom for 2 hours was quite a struggle. But the young people that were doing it during COVID have some have gone off to uni, some have stopped attending the online meetings. So our first plan in place is now that restrictions have lifted is for it to go back face to face from next month. So that we should then see an increase in our recruitment and our support, especially now people don't feel as scared go to these sorts of things. I think that there was quite a bit about that, about going out and doing things, whereas I think now people will be a little bit more open to doing these sorts of activities.
Thank you very much. I'm delighted that we don't have the full, written record. I don't know if anybody have any question, if you have been able to grab some of the things that she was saying. If you have any question that you want to ask her.
If you don't mind, Chair, but I don't know, I'd be interested to know about from Christopher's viewpoint, and are we just replicating another council meeting as such? I mean, I think if I was 15 or 16 to be presented with just, very formal language, reports, minutes, and also I haven't got children and I'm a dinosaur, so my impression, rightly or wrongly, is that we'd get more engagement from younger people through media, like more with social media, WhatsApp groups, Facebooks. I would have thought there would be more like interest and engagement through not having like meetings and things like that. So to hear that, in fact, it's the opposite. It doesn't fit with my thinking. Whether my thinking.
No, you're completely right. So what a big thing with the revamp that we're talking about, and actually myself and the commissioners, and there's a meeting on Friday, which I believe with yourself as well, with the youth worker from Thurrock Council, myself, my managers, and so there's going to be a conversation over what the CRCC should be and what we're commissioned to do, because a lot of the report talks about council formality. My view on it since coming in, and the reason why I believe I was employed and put into this role, was that I want to make it much more accessible for all ages. So I want to take away the formality of full agendas, full minutes. However, they will be available to the older members, so that they will be part of it, so that I can feed that back to people. However, with regards to the meetings, once they go face to face, for them to be more interactive, so there need to be worksheets where they can talk about events, rather than it being formal speaking. I think there was quite a bit of conversation about in the last committee meeting about it being more child-led.
Yeah.
I can't remember, and we were saying about that, and that's really part of my focus.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also by going face to face, we are looking at doing it in this type of room or the room downstairs, but also there to be the option for the young people who are at uni and who are away in other areas of the borough or who can't make it are still able to join. So there's still that. So what our look on with that is for it to be there to be a what we would class as adults as a formal part at the beginning, where we would sit, maybe ask the questions that might need to be asked or ask for their feedback on certain things, and then turn the session, have some food and turn it into more interactive, which is where it will come in wherever they be younger and older. So it could be that if we're in the beehive, the older ones that if it's about the big wide world, it wouldn't be fair to ask 11-year-olds to help me with that. So that's where pre-planning, booking in, council members to come in on certain dates would really benefit us, because I could say, right, this month we've got a couple of people that really want to speak to the 15 plus members of the CICC. I can arrange for that to be in this room, and the younger ones can still come downstairs, so that it's not overwhelming for those younger ones in care, but still making it an opportunity and a space for them to express their views and a place for them to be with other young people in care and be able to be honest and free speech, really. And for us as an independent agency, obviously not working for the council, we're promoting their views completely. So that's why Open Door, I think, were originally commissioned, because of them being a separate service and what they do with advocacy and stuff like that. It's all about the young people's voice, which is what we want to really continue to promote. And hopefully by doing promoting again and the recruitment going back up, and myself being a foster carer, I think it will be a bit better with myself putting myself out to other foster carers, stating what the Children in Care Council is and having that sort of linking with the team as well.
But I certainly support that. It's a sort of a social occasion that where they it's spoken hub. From that hub, they will direct off what.
And I can take what they say. Yeah,
basically. Yeah. I
hope that makes sense. No, that's
yeah,
fine.
no,
It does. From what was written and how it was, but a lot of that was because of COVID, because I think it was a lot more fun and stuff even before that, with the food and stuff like that. It was different. So I think the whole formality of the CRCC completely changed over those 18 or nearly 2 years now.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Curtin.
It's fine, because you've asked what I was going to say, so that's fine.
Yeah, could you just talk us through the structure of how it was before COVID and how things?
Yeah, so before COVID, from what was put to me and what I was told, was that it was still a very formal meeting. They would sit down, there would be an agenda that would be emailed out to all of the young people beforehand, and I so before, and then they would have food at some point, but the majority of it was very formal. But I believe that at the time, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, that was what was asked at the time. I think times have really changed in things being child-led and things being more interactive, and social media, WhatsApps, Facebook, all of that is so much bigger now. So that wasn't really an option of use back 3 years ago. I know that seems a bit, but there has been such a change in social media and in interactive things and paperwork. That's what I know of it before COVID. Obviously, when I joined, it was COVID, so I'd never attended a meeting before that. I don't know if you quite there's anything different.
It was a lot easier to engage, and a lot easier to just actually say what we actually thought as well, because being behind a screen, that as well. Coming up with theirs. meeting come transport. That way. With regards to the changes, social media, able to social media help voice and even doing something ourselves online. There has been over time, I think, an animation video has been in the process of being made, and that's brilliant. And I know that they're just waiting for the okay before that goes public, which has been completely done by members of the CRCC, which was done over the summer holidays, and it was amazing. And hearing their voice, and there's also a letter that our young people wrote that should go out to all young people who've just gone into care. But myself and Christopher have had the conversation in the car today about how we feel it's probably not appropriate when someone straight away goes into care for that to be put on. We were talking about all that, so we were saying about how perhaps it's something that IROs could introduce at the first LAC review or second, rather than it being part of, because Chris was saying about you have to have health assessments and you have all these people coming around. If someone goes, do you want to go to this club? People are going to go and say thank you. So about perhaps it being taken away from a social worker, introducing it at the beginning, and it being an afterthought, which I know isn't always the best thing, but I think in this case it would be. And with myself knowing foster carers and knowing the process, quite often we know when people are getting new placements and things like that. So that would help when would be the best time to approach young people. And I know that there's lots of events and stuff that we've been to and that we've represented CRCC at, where we've managed to talk about recruitment. And when we did the Grange Waters event in the summer, which was brilliant, and we got a lot of feedback that people were wanting to join, and everyone said they didn't want to do it online, they wanted to do it face to face. So that was what was really pushing us to move it face to face.
Thank you. I just want to know if you sometimes share knowledge or experience with a neighboring community such as Basildon, how they manage to do this. And
yeah, so I attend the regional there's like a regional meeting where other boroughs talk about their CRCCs, what they talk about in their boroughs, what questions they have to put out to their young people. And even though it might not be in Thurrock at that moment, it might still be something I ask my young people because it's something that's coming to Thurrock. Or there's also a lady who we've been in touch with recently who runs one of the Essex, CRCC, about myself attending a couple of their meetings just to see how it's run physically now. I know that, and a lot of boroughs are in the same situation where it's all been online, so everyone's really seeing a dip in attendance and stuff like that. So a lot more of it, I'm really hoping over the next 6 months should be promoted again, and that I'll be able to go to things physically rather than virtually. It is good because where the virtual meetings now, there is people from all over the place. I think yourself was on one of those, one that I went on last month. And it was really good because there's talk on there. And for myself, coming new into this role, it's quite good hearing what other agencies do to perhaps look at new ways of interacting with our young people and giving feedback in person.
Councillor Potter?
Yes, so I was just going to ask Chris what the first of all, thank you for coming and giving this speech today. It was certainly very insightful. But I'd like to see what you think is the best part of the meeting and what area would you improve.
To answer, especially because the last that we've had. But when our meetings, it's just everyone relates experiences of it, and for those that actually whether it's a positive or negative. That way, some sort of talking about generally, to say so.
You are making a lot of sense. Yeah.
It's difficult. Really, completely honest, and again, that's really difficult. Because not many younger members like the idea of that come across that it isn't just that, it's not just some family thing go to and that's it. There's so much more behind that. The members now, like Laura was saying, we're over 16. Most of us are in aftercare other than I don't think that gives an accurate presentation of what it's like to be in care now. It might have changed in the past years, but we don't know because we're in aftercare. We've trying.
I say it's much more that's a customer that more childless services.
That's what we want it to be.
Yeah, and that's really great. It certainly wasn't that way when I was in there. So,
and that's what we've chatted about in the car, and that's what we're going to put forward on Friday, and how our view of it is going to completely change, and that we hope for it to become more attractive and friendly, but also for it to be a bit more fun. So although yes, we are essentially a council, and what we will need to give back, we will feed back, and I will write reports in the way that the council need those reports written, but how I get the information won't be on pen and paper. That makes sense. And a lot of that comes from my background and how I get information from young people and how I collate it. Although it might look like a bunch of smiley faces and pictures, and how I collate it back to you might look very formal, but I'll be able to explain how I collected it. Yeah.
Councillor Warren?
So when you're having these meetings, these buildings are pretty boring, you know, so I think that could go some way to why young people don't want to come. They are very formal, and even downstairs, it's still a boring but a bigger room.
Yeah.
You know, so maybe is there any chance that you could hold them in? I know the Inspire Youth Club's better, but you know, you've got a brand new youth club in Tilbury. That is amazing, that youth club down there.
That's the one with the old boxing.
All over the road, yeah. What's under the flats?
Yeah, yeah.
So it's got music, it's got like there's karaoke, there's pool tables, but there's still a meeting room, so they can have a formal meeting. And I'm sure in the community hubs there's one in Ockenden, you know, like so they're around the borough. Is it worth moving them? Try to get young people.
So that's something
Or
that
Granville is even like, so you know, you could have an activity bit and a work bit, and that might encourage young people.
So in holidays, in school holidays, and what we tried before, I think they were meant to be 3 or 4 times a year. The meetings were held in community, by going bowling or that's what was meant to be happening, and then COVID. So we said a lot about how there still does need to be
the formality of it. So by doing it, so say for instance, young people, what we might do is they know that they come, and we, especially downstairs, we have that formal part bit, but then it might be that we have someone in and we're doing about, I don't know, I think we were talking about something the other week where there's some people that come that can do like about public speaking and building self-confidence, and they do interactive activities and they can come and do that. Room like downstairs is perfect because of the space, but there is a lot of flexibility in where we can go and how we do it, which is why I'm hoping that by changing the way that we collate information, give us that opportunity to be more flexible in where we go and what we do. You get a lot of them that used to come for like free pizza, and I know that something that makes me laugh because actually there was a little push for it to be more healthy friendly. But what we sort of said is actually if it's once a month and they're coming to get a pizza, that's okay. If they're going to come and get chips, well, if they know in advance and their foster care is saying, okay, give them a bit of extra salad at lunch. But what we didn't want to do was take that away, because that's also a bit, not bribery, but it is a bit like a bit of pizza, a bit of pizza. Yeah. And then once they come, they realise what it is, they see what we can do and how the changes that can be made and their voices can be heard. And then that's what keeps them coming back, not the free pizza, because a lot of them still came back when there wasn't free pizza. So it's now got to get them there in the first place.
And from that point, if we say this is your meeting, you tell us how you want it run, and then we'll say, but you can't have the food that you like.
I push that, yeah.
We're on the back foot straight away.
Yeah.
Surely.
So and we've said about things like bake-offs and linking in with SIP, who are downstairs at the moment. Because it's obviously both run by Open Door, where a lot of the young people that come to CFCC also do SIP, which is the group for young people who have left, who are going into aftercare, independent skills, learning all of that. So by linking in with them and being able to do activities, it's sort of giving young people opportunities to come together under different circumstances, but with the same goal, ultimately. Yeah.
This is what I also found that works for young people. If you give them a sense of responsibility, like you are in charge of this, you'll be put in charge of that, that sometimes motivates them to feel responsible.
I think that's why it's really good that we have a chair and a vice chair who ultimately are the ones. So it tends to be that, yes, I am the project worker, I run the project. However, nothing will really be happening or start without consultation. So I've actually met with Christopher this evening to talk about what I'm going to take to this meeting on Friday and how it's going to be discussed on Friday. Due to college, Christopher can't be there, but it's going to be his voices heard, and also with moving forward, keeping that like committee sort of team, even though it's formal, but like you say, it does give them that role. We were talking about it, you were saying how they struggled to get a vice chair once the old chair left and Christopher went into the chair role. But what we're hoping is that a chair role is kept on by someone in an older age range, but then the vice chair can be someone who's quite a bit younger, who can have the voice of the younger members of children in care.
Thank you, everyone. I hold members in agreement with the recommendation outlined within the report. Let's go to item 6. Children social care performance, quarter 3, 2021 to 2022. Can I ask officers to introduce the report?
Hello, Chair. I'm going to go through the report. I'm named the strategic lead for code and looked after it. Generally, just to give an overview of the report, it was to say that performance is very good across the department. Hopefully you can see that as you've been going through the report. We have been managing obviously through COVID the last year, various lockdowns, and the Omicron variant that emerged towards the end of November and December and January. So although we're enjoying some release of the restrictions now, that that is the context in which we have been delivering services. So we have approximately 300 looked after children, just over 300 care leavers, and we report the performance of the children in care and aftercare through to the Department for Education, and that is the context in which this report is produced and to corporate parenting. So it gives you a good overview of the different areas that we focus on through our corporate parenting responsibilities, and gives you an idea of the entrance into care and numbers of children who are also leaving care and the reason. I draw the committee's attention to the emerging picture of unaccompanied asylum seeker. We touched on that at the last committee. We are continuing to see small increases in our US population, and we are now within a mandatory scheme of the National Transfer Scheme. So that supports our local authority, because we are a port of entry, being able to redistribute across the whole of England those local authorities who do not meet the 0.7 of their child population. So the National Transfer Scheme is managed by the Home Office. We are working with them in order to transfer our unaccompanied asylum seeking children where we are over our numbers. That is developing and in progress. It's really only started in the autumn of 2021, but is gaining more momentum. So it did replace the Eastern Region Transfer Scheme, which obviously had been in operation for a number of years and was embedded. So the National Transfer Scheme is a new scheme, and we are working with local authorities across the whole of England. So it's a larger picture. I think that there isn't anything particularly to raise with that. We're not having huge surges. We are expecting to continue to have small numbers come through, because lockdown has meant that entry is more accessible now for young people travelling. We continue to work with the police so that young people are protected as opposed to arrested when they arrive, and that is proving to be much more positive in supporting our young people to remain looked after, and we haven't had any instances of missing where we've used police protective powers to safeguard children. So in terms of our rate of looked after children, we're in line with our statistical neighbours, and we're below our England average. So again, that performance is so just moving on through the children who are leaving care. There are various reasons why they would be leaving care. There's been slight delay for some of the younger children because of court proceedings. There's been a delay in that. I think in the report we highlight the number that if over a certain number of weeks. So we try, the public law outline was for 26 weeks, but obviously court proceedings are taking longer than that, and that is impacting on our long-term permanency. You would probably notice the number of children who are going missing since lockdown has restrictions have lifted. You can see that our young people have taken the opportunity to be out and about a bit more, and I just wanted to reassure members that although it looks as that there are increases in that regard. They are the majority are young people who aren't where they should be at a particular time. So foster carers and Thurrock foster carers are very good at making sure that the police and our emergency duty team are informed when a child has missed a curfew, and they do that robustly. So we would rather have these figures which tell us that young people are maybe coming home late, half an hour late, but they weren't where they should have been when they were reported missing. And then we do have robust strategy meetings, and they're meetings where we coordinate the response from the police and from children's social care and health, with a multi-agency meeting weekly to look at those missing episodes, to make sure where it isn't the case, where the young people are missing or they've missed a curfew time and they are at risk, we have clear protection plans in place and we know who those children are. So we also have what we call the return home interviews, and this is the formal category where an independent person meets with a young person and goes through the reasons why they might have gone. Now, although that figure looks could be improved, what I wanted to also reassure members about was the activity of the allocated social worker who will visit a child after a missing episode. And sometimes a young person won't talk to the independent person, but they will talk to their allocated social worker because that's who they've got a relationship with. The purpose of the independent person is to facilitate the young person having an opportunity, if they don't want to talk to the network around them, or they feel at risk from the network around them, they've got someone outside of the network to talk. Along with the social worker, they also have the police who all do a safe and well check. So I'll just go on to the initial I can't move on until I've noted the timeliness of social work visits. Just to say that throughout COVID and with sickness in the service and some social work vacancies, the service have been really fabulous in making sure that our children are seen and they are talked to and their situations are discussed. So we feel that that is a very key indicator. And it was very important throughout COVID that even though we couldn't maybe see them face to face, we continued those visits virtually. And then we did continue, unless there was a COVID situation in the home, to see those children and young people. So in terms of initial health assessments, we generally do very well. You can see that you're talking about in the volume of 5-day requests, very, very tiny numbers, which then create huge percentages. So if you miss one IHA when there have only been 6, it looks like you've missed a significant percentage, but actually it's only 1 in 5. So we are working, we meet weekly with health colleagues, and the first part of the IHA is making sure that as a child enters into care, that we obtain all of the agreements from parents, from the child, in order to facilitate an appointment being offered within the first 20 working days of a child entering into care. And sometimes you can't meet the 5-day timescale, and that is because of a variety of reasons. A young person, we've had a couple of young people, older young people, where they are offered at least 2 appointments, but if they say that they won't accept that, we say you need to ask us and we will provide that to you. But after 2 appointments, we leave it with the young person, particularly for those who are older, kind of 15, 16, 17. For those who are younger, we need parental consent if they come in to care voluntarily. For those who have come in voluntarily and we haven't got consent, we have to go to court, and we have to wait until we get that order in order to progress to providing those initial health assessments. You can see the impact of COVID in offering the 20-day assessment from health through November and December, where a number of health colleagues were redeployed. Also, the issues are less for our Thurrock children and more in relation to Thurrock children placed outside of the area. They're waiting in some of the surrounding boroughs who don't come under the Thurrock version that we commission. So in terms of our mental health and well-being of our young people, the strengths and difficulties we're performing positively. We do have an offer from our youth service. We advocate on behalf of our looked after children to therapy and nutrition. We've got a number of services that we offer well if we need to, if there's an urgent need for and I'd just like to draw members' attention to the adoption performance, which in comparison to our stat neighbours and England were very positive. And that is, even though we're in COVID time and there has been significant delay, along with as you will have read, the issues around the contested hearings that we're having with parents. So we can go to court, we can get agreement for placement for adoption, we'll immediately get a contested hearing. Then once we've had that, got agreement to place the children in an adopted place, we may then get a further contested hearing as well. So the adoption service has been working through COVID and a number of tricky places which have been conflict. So in terms of placement distance, we have basically, and I presented the report at the last parenting around the recruitment of foster carers and the significant efforts to increase the cohort of foster carers that we have in the Thurrock fostering community, and that would support us improving placing children more locally. We are doing very well in our fostering recruitment. We have I think it's about 17 who are by the end of the financial year, if not just be into the financial year, but it is up. It is 6, is it? Yes, yeah. So really, it's really good. I think we've just been relentless in the advertising. My thanks to the communications department in Thurrock. They've been fabulous. We continue to be innovative in our branding, innovative in our marketing. For those of you who've seen our new advert on the TV as well, anything that we are investing is less than the cost that we are paying if we have to place our children in independent fostering residents, and we recoup any capital investment in our marketing through by about 14 weeks of a new foster care. So it's really we just want to continue with what we're doing. But and a further plug is this: to look at the back of your council tax booklet. We're there again this year, so we're really grateful because you have to put your case forward to get that, secure that. So in terms of the care leaving service, we've had a lot of feedback from young people who've been looked after in the care leaving service. So we've been spending quite a bit of time with our housing colleagues to try and create a better pipeline so that we've got that accommodation from being looked after and a clear understanding of what your choices and then what the contingency planning might be if the first choice or the first option doesn't. So you can see the care leaver cohort is increasing, so that workload is increasing as they transition out of being looked after into the care leaving service, along with the new government guidance, which you can see has doubled the cohort post 22 for Thurrock. We are looking at that service and making sure we've got all the resources that we need to deliver to our young people. So we're very pleased about the suitable accommodation, and the cohort who aren't in suitable accommodation are either in custody or they are missing adult US. So we spend a lot of time cleaning that data, as you can imagine. So the other area which I think you might be interested in is the care leaver 8 strategy. We really do need to get to grips with this and try and offer and encourage our looked after children, and then as they move into care leavers, to follow up with 8 opportunities to continue with their education. I think COVID has been a challenge. If you work online and you find working online that you can do it, then that's easier. But if you find that you've been isolated or you find lockdown has been done, it's about re-engaging those young people. So we are Janet and I are going to be delivering to our leadership group around corporate parenting. What is corporate parenting? What can we, the officers of the council, do to deliver opportunities for our care leavers, and what could be the offer with the free port? So we're looking for anything from a work experience through to an apprenticeship and then on to employment, and working with our businesses to support and understand the support that our young people need and our cohort, and working on a strategy that says care leavers first. Is there a way in which we can promote them for our job interviews first, our work experience? So we had Mark Riddell, who came from the DFE, and he calls it, and I really like his term, jobs in the family business. You're a corporate parent. So as a parent, if you were in a business, you would be offering those opportunities to your child, work or have this experience. So what he is saying, you're in the council, you have all these departments, what is your offer? And then looking at support, having that here at corporate parenting, so that we're able to say and hold those officers to account in the council, say, well, how many work experiences did you offer for a care? And it is seeking member support to bring that up in their committees as well, to say, I'm just wondering what you've been doing with our care leaver offer as a corporate parent. So that's really a walk through where we are with our performance. I'm sure that Janet will be able to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much for the report. Is there any question from the members? Oh, Councillor.
Yeah, thank you, Nan, for the report. And Janet, if you're going to be answering the questions. Yeah, so obviously there's been a big increase in missing episodes. We might have expected that with, because I think it's quite, we went back into more restrictions that in that particular quarter year before. However, what I was a bit worried about was that the return home interviews have fallen again, so only 37% of those were complete. So this is very low. And can we have our little graph back that used to be in that section of the report so we can see what's been happening over time?
Yeah, sure.
Because it's disappeared. It just makes it easier to see. So obviously this is something that was picked up in the Ofsted focus visit. So they noted that all children are now offered return home interviews, but the take-up of these needs to be improved. And at that point, it was 58%. They said it was still too low. So, I mean, we've talked about this quite a lot here and the Children's Services Committee. And we did talk about that you were looking at how to improve the take-up of children with the return to home interviews, and also about capturing somehow the information that is more informal, that's coming from social work contacts or police contacts, etc. So I wondered what's been happening around that. And
okay, so at the moment what we're doing, we're taking an approach very similar to what we did with our initial health assessments.
Right.
So we have weekly meetings every Monday morning where we meet children's social care, meet with our Inspire Hub, we meet with workers of the Inspire Hub, and we're coming up with different ways of trying to do things. So we know that not all young people want to accept a return home interview, but we want to make sure that all of our children are seen. So we currently have a way of capturing the data for return home interviews that are conducted by Inspire, but we've expanded that out to social workers. Social workers will always meet with the young people after they've returned after being away. And so they will record those return home interviews on a form. What we're saying is we need to capture our return home interviews in a very different way, in the same way lots of other local authorities. We need to be clear that, you know, if 100 young people go missing, it's just a number I'm putting in the air, that 100 have been offered a return home interview. 35%, for example, have been offered been seen and spoken to by Inspire Hub. 35% have been seen and spoken to by a social worker, and maybe 30, you know, the other 30% have been seen and spoken to by maybe somebody from our Families Together team or one of the other teams that might be able to do youth service or somebody else that's engaged with us. That's what we're working towards. So we've got our PQBI, our team that develops forms for us to make sure that we're actually capturing that data. We have a dashboard, so I'm looking at some of the dashboard figures here at the moment to try and make sure I'm clear about. So it's making sure that we can capture that, so that when we're writing these reports for you, you can get a clear sense of how many children have been seen, when they've been seen, what the timeliness is, and kind of see if we could then improve it. Do we need to do something different with our Inspire Hub? Are they able to meet that need, or do we need to be looking at doing that very differently? So we are having lots of conversations. Unfortunately, it sometimes takes a little while to turn these things around, but we managed to do that. We're using the same sort of approach with our initial health assessment, so that's what we're working on. But what I can say is that young people are being seen, and it's really important that we capture that rather than just say it's this percentage by Inspire Hub.
so what I'm hearing is you're confident that all kids who go missing, you know, are being seen, but it's just still working towards how you're going to capture that informally and formally. Do you think there's any reason for the number of return home interviews dropping? Because we did get up to sort of 70 from memory. We got up to sort of 70.
At different times it can go up and then go down and then go up and go down, and sometimes that can depend on the cohort of young people who are missing. So we have had some of our numbers relate to 17-year-olds who are. So we've got one young lad at the moment who's 17, and his dad has been recorded as a missing episode, but he's often at his grandparents or at his mother's, and so it's not a missing episode, but if we haven't actually seen a young person in that place, then they are down as missing.
Yeah.
So it captures a whole range of things. It isn't literally always. So,
Oh, no, it was just for the next question.
okay,
Yeah.
so sometimes, especially the 17-year-olds who are kind of quite difficult, isn't it, really, when you're 17 and you're saying, I'm going around to my mates, and we accept that they're going around to their mates, but ultimately, legally, they are children, and we are responsible for them. And if we're not confident about where they are, then I've seen you, I've seen that person, they confirm to me that you're safe and okay, you have to report them.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, quite rightly. I mean, as corporate parents, we should be taking that approach. Certainly, my son wasn't where he should be. I would want to know where he was.
So the majority of children on here are teenagers who are 16 and 17.
Yeah.
They're not, for example, we've got those 5-year-olds that are missing, or you know, those sorts of ages, because that would really be concerning for us.
I just say as a foster care on that note, it like what, as far as that again, as foster carers, it's drummed into us that we report these things because they need to be reported effectively so that you can see the truth in the matter.
Yeah.
And they're a bit harder than when you've got a 16 or 17-year-old with yours who has said, I'm going out, I'm going to help. You know where they're going. You're not, you know, like you say, to their parents' house or their friends, but you're not necessarily going to take yourself to that person's house and put yourself in that situation. So it is and sometimes when you ring that easy to you say, it's me again, I'm really sorry, so-and-so is missing, I'm telling you this is where they are, but I'm officially reporting them missing. So I think even as carers, we're still following that same protocol, even though we know, because I'm looking at that figure and I can see that, and even I'm thinking, I know where the 75% are, but
I mean, that's only right, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, you should be reporting those.
That's why the figures are so
incidents.
good,
Yeah.
because I think the foster carers are doing what they're told. It'd be so easy, because you know, some of them, they go to their parents or their mums for the day and then they come home. But you can't, that frame of time, they're not with you, they're not, to you in some ways, they're not safe. So you still have to report, even though you know that they're most likely going to walk back through the building as well.
Also, I think that brings the percentage of return home interviews being refused is that it could be one young person that over that month has been missing 10 times. So it's the same young person saying no.
Yeah, sure.
It's not 10 different children.
The point
so,
is at the moment
you know,
that we don't know, do we? So with that information needs to be kept. I'll just recap on what I said last time. Really, that information does need to be good, and you know it needs to be secured, and that is something that Ofsted has asked for. I think we do need to keep working towards that and keep up work on that school.
I would really want to come in on that, is there any way it's written? Maybe wherever they are going out, something is on the wall, something is in their form, something is anywhere they want to feel something is written there that if you go missing, when you come back, you are going to do return, blah, blah, blah. Do you make that very much?
So when young people apply, there is what we call a placement agreement, where we talk about the day-to-day arrangements and what sort of things they can expect, you know, what sanctions they might have, you know, so what pocket money they'll get, savings will be made for them. But yeah, if you go missing, this is what we'll do, this is what will happen. It will be discussed in their LAC reviews, it will be discussed with their social worker. It's discussed in a lot of ways and written down as well. But you know, when you're 17 and you want to go around your mates, you don't necessarily want everybody to know where you're going, and that is the difficulty really. And for some of our young people, we see the emergency duty reports that come in each morning. It's often, you know, sort of, I don't know, X has gone missing, and then there'll be another call, maybe an hour later, they've just returned home. So it is sometimes it's as simple as somebody is late home, or somebody's just decided, you know, a young person has decided, I know I'm supposed to be home by 10, but I'm going to be home by 11 tonight because I'm doing something.
So before we start writing things down then and writing all this report, is it possible to differentiate from people who went in for missing for half an hour and people who just randomly go off? Because if somebody go missing for 30 minutes and come back and you want to start sitting down and filling all this form, it's very annoying. So how do we just, you know,
Well, yes, I do get what you're saying, but I suppose what would be useful for this committee might be for us to be able to say, as I said, of these young people that are missing, these are the ones that were missing for less than 24 hours, or were late on that night, or, you know, maybe we need to be, that's what we're trying to do, is get to the point where we're able to report that information, but we do still have to record it. It is really important that we're clear, because the one time you don't record it may be the time that you really did need to, and it may have made a difference.
All right, I think that would be a good idea to know people who are missing within for just 30 minutes and people who have gone missing for 1 day, 2 days, or 7 days. Councillor,
I was just picking up on what you said. Thank you, Jess. And thank you for your report. It was just where you said there was now 17 foster carers. I think we're getting closer to that number we were aiming for. Can you just remind us what that number is?
So we were looking at 25. We'd like 25. So I think I've said before that it's always good to make sure that you're maintaining the same number of foster carers. So if you can do that as a local authority and just maintain, if you like, the stock of fostering households that you've got and the beds available, which we are, that's a good position. But you're moving to an even better position if you are increasing. So we wanted to increase by about 10 to 15 foster households, which would give us maybe 20 plus beds. That's what we're hoping.
So have we had any foster carers leave then recently to just trying to get them?
Yes, we've had a number of resignations. I haven't got that data with me tonight, but we're holding steady and we're increasing our cohort as well. And with the latest advertising, we've stepped up. It's kind of taken us the last 12 months to move from being a community-based fostering recruitment hub to being an online web-based and looking at alternative sources of advertising. And I think that not only have we picked up, but we've improved our reach as well. So we've just been trying lots of different ways of recruiting foster carers with that.
And it's worked.
And it's worked, yes. It is relentless. You do have to just keep going and going and going with that marketing and using different platforms in order to make sure your message is out there. So we're now looking. Thurrock has got a TikTok page, so we're just doing that as well. Because it's where I don't know, American foster carers have been posting on there about what their experiences are. So we've got opportunities as well. That we should
massive.
It's massive.
Online.
Yeah.
We've got foster carers coming.
Councillor Rita, you partially, thank you for the report. You've partially answered my question, but you were saying about possibly breaking the data down into sort of clearer bits so we can see how long and so on for our benefit. I mean, obviously all of it has to be recorded, but could that also include looking at the ages of the people that are going? Because you say it is often very different. Somebody who's 17 and is away for 2 hours as to someone who we really should be concerned about. So thank you for that.
Yeah, we'll definitely do that.
Councillor Madonna?
Yeah, thank you. I know that you've talked a bit about our young people who are not in education or training, employment education or training. So I think that's on page 39. So we're looking at only 50% of our care leavers aged 19 to 21 are in employment education and training. It's slightly better than this time last year, where when it was 48%. So what? 39. Slightly better than this time last year, and it's still at 48. we're in the midst of COVID then. So I know you said that we're looking at how the council and the council officers as corporate parents can offer more opportunities for our care leavers. What else have you been looking at? Because obviously it's quite a big gap, isn't it? Do we have a target that we're trying to hit on?
Well, it would be good if we could get it over 60,
Right.
60, 62. But when Mark Liddell came, he was very ambitious, which we should be too, and he said it was he managed in his local authority government over 90%.
Wow.
I want to be clear, that's really very unusual. When we were at 60, I think we were
60 is
60,
good.
when we were in the 60s, we were considered to be sort of performing well against other local authorities. So I wouldn't want anybody to think that we're going to tomorrow have 90%.
No, but maybe we can have an more ambitious target. And so, are there other what other things are you doing apart from looking at council and what they can offer?
I think that is. I think we do need to focus on the council. I don't think we've got enough of that. That would make a significant difference. But we do have the Princess Trust. We do have On Track, which I haven't got the details of that.
We'll get into that.
Yeah.
It's certainly
Well.
yeah. It's my day job.
It is.
So I'll declare that interest now.
Yeah, I mean, and sometimes it's very, very difficult because what you're looking at is young people that, from their family standpoint, have come out of families that are on benefits, and it's a natural thing for them to see that education isn't that important. It's sometimes very hard to get through to them and to move them into education. And with things like On Track, then you can just sort of move them sideways, and then they start to move on from there. And it definitely works.
I mean, I would say that so for a number of our looked after children, the focus is always on achieving GCSEs and going a very formal route. But actually, if you haven't been successful in school for years, and then you get to 17, and we still say you must go to college, you must do this, that there's a whole cohort of young people for whom academia is never going to be the way in which you succeed. So
All kids are like that, aren't they?
Oh,
Don't matter.
Yeah. I think not everybody in this table's got a degree.
So I really want that opportunity to explore those work experience for young people, so that they build their self-esteem and are successful in doing, because they've got other skills. It's just not promoted in the same way as academia is rewarded. So and I have this example of there was a young girl, she had been in school for a number of months, potentially years, and her personal advisor, she got to 18, started a new year, she got her into college, she wanted to work with animals, and she was doing a social care course. And I said, how has this happened? This young girl went to college for having not been in college for nearly a year or more. She goes to college, she actually attends for a month, and I said that was enormous for her, because she doesn't like college, she's doing a course she doesn't like, why have we done this to her? So that wasn't while I was working in Thurrock. So I'm taking that experience and I'm saying, let's find out about these young people, what they're interested in, because if you're interested in animals, it's not about putting you on a course necessarily, it's about giving you that work experience that exposes you. And Mark Liddell talks about this girl who started with a member who had horses. She liked animals, she went up, she did some work with the horses and clearing out, and now she is an equestrian. And he said, okay, that's 1 in 300 care leavers, but actually it's that amount of effort and energy that you've got to put into our young people in order to give them those opportunities. And that's that's a vision at the moment, but I would like to think that in 3 years' time, we will be saying we've given those opportunities, and that does look like 65% of our young people, because they're doing things that they like doing, because everybody knows if you like doing it, you get up and you go to do it, and you don't like to do it, you won't get up and you won't do it. And as Sharon has said, you might just say, oh, I can't do it, I've never been very good at this, I'm not good at this, I'm doing the same again and I'm not going to be successful. So we need to try and help them change that script and become more positive and constructive. So we're working. It is a, I mean,
Joint enterprise.
yes, I've said it very easily, but it is to make that happen on the ground needs quite a lot of work.
I think that's what Sharon just.
Can I just come in there? First, I mean, this doesn't only measure the academic, you're talking about employment and training. Are you making links and use of some of the groups we've got in the borough that are trying to get people back into work? So like the CLLD and things have a lot of funding, and they work with groups who try and get residents back into work, but I'm sure they could equally get care leavers opportunities. So it wouldn't necessarily be go to college and do something that wouldn't necessarily suit everyone, but you know, I think it might be another route that could be worthwhile exploring.
Yeah, I've got two questions for you. So my first one is housing related. So obviously Head Start is an amazing programme. So what do we need? You know, I think we've got the local plan, we're building, there's ambitions, and it's, you know, how do we get to a place where we don't say the top floor flat of a 15 block of flats is where we put our care leavers living in the studio? You
And
know,
that literally happened to me.
so the days of that need to be gone. That is where we aspire to put our care leavers. So what do we need to be building into the local plan? Whether that's move on housing where they, you know, all live together and then move on, you know, so what would you like? You know, because the time is now that we're looking at the local plan. The local plan's out being consulted on, but you know, who's speaking to those that are on the council to say what does accommodation need to look like for us to be a good service and not just read reports where it starts summer not in good condition, because that's a shame. But that's where we're putting it.
There was a conversation, sorry, there was a conversation about that in one of our council meetings. Very small conversation, but the majority, because I think we were talking the same meeting where we were talking about wordings that were being used, and from what I get and the general consensus was that they just wanted them to be housing, not obviously in not a very nice area like where we had to go up lifts, and then if lifts weren't working you had to walk up 15 flights of stairs. Just being able to walk not very far to a local shop, being able to do those sorts of things themselves, not depending on them being more independent friendly, and by being in those big flats and by being in those big blocks that they're not. There was a couple of conversations about the housing, but that seemed to be more positively received by young members who have got additional needs, who maybe need that little bit more support. So by being in a house with other care leavers or other young people, that they're being a bit more visual, okay, that's how they're cooking their dinner, that sort of thing. Whereas you've also got other members who are very, very independent and by 16 could easily run a house better than some of us adults. So there was quite a mixed receiving from that, but the consensus on what they wanted was for it to be clean, with a bathroom and a kitchen that was working, not bringing the council every 10 minutes because their fridge and their freezer weren't working or the ovens won't turn on. So that was the consensus there, but that's something I can look to take back to my older members if that's something that needs to be.
I think that in the local plan that is where we should be making sure they're consulted. You know, absolutely. I think that it's a priority to make sure that it's not just, you know, going round and to, yeah, yeah,
Find space.
yeah, but it should be that, you know, we're building, we have an aspiration to build houses. You know, I'm chairing a committee tomorrow night about building houses, you know, and some of those should be for young people and care leavers.
But to be meeting the need that we've actually got, rather than, you know, the fear about where developers want to build. Yeah, I mean, you know, there'll be some of that, obviously.
So I think it's important that, you know, built into the local plan is this speaking to those who in care and leaving, so that we've got a pipeline, so to speak. And my other question was, you talked about vacancies. I just wondered what the vacancy number looked like, you know, and so that are you
So I could talk about vacancies as in staff.
vacancies in staff? Yeah, absolutely.
So I mean, recruitment and retention of qualified social workers is a national issue.
I know it is. Yeah, I've got friends that are social workers.
We're relatively lucky in Thurrock in that we are recruiting, but it is a challenge. It is an absolute challenge, you know, to recruit and retain. We have a lot of permanent social workers who've been around for some time. They're committed to Thurrock, want to stay, they want to work in Thurrock. But we're working in a market at the moment in social work, agency social work is quite right. And I think COVID has had an impact in terms of people thinking about, well, what do I want? So I think some people are thinking, do I want to do this? It's a difficult job. Do I want to do this, or do I want a different balance to my life? I think we've got people who think, well, actually, now that we're able to work differently, I can think about where I work and I can maybe make a different choice about what I do. But yes, there is an issue around recruitment and retention. Something we're working with.
You go advertising like we have on the telly. You know, you just take it on the end of, well, if you don't want to be like a foster parent, you want to be a social worker. Are you a social?
I mean, we're lucky. I mean, Ruth may be able to talk more about this because she leads on it. We are launching a social work academy, which will be around making sure we're actually, you know, actively kind of promoting social work in Thurrock. We have students. We regularly have students doing our surveys every year. Most of those students will then apply to be social workers once they qualify and take them through their assisted year, their first year post qualifying. We're always looking for people who we can kind of develop and sort of, you know, we want people to kind of feel like this is a learning authority. It's somewhere where you'll listen to, but also somewhere where you can develop and you can move on as well. And so I would say we're quite successful in terms of our recruitment, but alongside that, it's the national picture as well.
And thank you.
Councillor Polly.
Thank you. When we was looking at the education, employment and training, we obviously are looking at, in this committee, at looked after children in care, children leaving care. But I don't know how that compares with the rest of Thurrock. In that respect, in that demographic, what is our employment, unemployment levels within that? So, I mean, is that just reflective of the work situation in Thurrock? One of the things that I do think is quite interesting along with the local plan and going forwards is the announcement of the free ports, the work that's been done. Whereas before we was pretty much retail and logistics, we are now opening up our horizons, and we've got creative industries and that coming on, like to Perfect and Thames and that to the future. So there's more aspirational sort of careers, I feel, in front of us, and I think we've got perhaps more of a mix to be able to engage with a younger people and in fact, I mean, we're a diverse demographic, which I'm very proud of. But again, I've worked with an organisation in St Albans where they would do an accredited course, and it would literally be a personal contract with an individual. You must show up for 6 weeks, and that's a starting point. And for some people, that is absolutely huge, especially when they've had such disruption in younger years. They've not had the you get up at this time, you have your breakfast, you brush your teeth, off you go, you come back at 4 o'clock. That in itself is just alien, and yes, it's in perfect where the parenting skills had to come first before we get children into primary school, and that wasn't. There's no reflection on the children at primary school. That was just because we had to analyse why a 4-year-old wasn't getting to school in the morning. That wasn't the child's choice. So I think when we look at these figures, I think we need to see it in context of the wider picture in Thurrock as well, because I think that will give us a yardstick whether we're doing well by our young people, or whether that is just a broader picture, and that's just something I feel. And I agree with the accommodation. We need a mix of housing. We've seen it before in other parts of the borough where we've had over development of one particular type of black development, which makes transient communities. It doesn't. As regards to the social worker recruitment, I've recently met one of our social workers who he helped me with some casework, and if that's the calibre social worker we recruit, we're doing a good job in Thurrock. But what I'd like to know is when there's not an exit, like with healthcare professionals, Southend are doing some incredible work with like Communities Fund at the moment to try and encourage people, as you quite rightly say, that are looking to return to work or take different career options to recruit for Southend Hospital. Is there what makes us Gucci? What makes us the place of choice over Kent County Council, Essex County Council for a social worker?
I mean, we invited Mark Goodell to come in and talk to us and talk about our offer to care leavers. The next point on our plan, and once we kind of, as we move on with our corporate parenting plan, is how we're going to run that. One of the things we want to do is take up some of the challenges he put to us, and that's about kind of really engaging members in terms of our offer to care leavers, but also engaging our partners and the people who work with us. So, in one local authority I worked at, one of the things we did, we said, if we're giving you a contract, then we expect you to work with our care leavers and to be offering them opportunities. We've got the local plan, we've got like the free ports, we've got all those things happening. What is there for our young people? They're our children, so they're the young people that we should be giving a second chance to, a first chance, a second chance, a third chance, like we would with our own children. So it's about making sure that as a corporately we feel responsible, but also how we kind of get that buy-in from our partners as well. We're having lots of conversations with our housing colleagues. We've got good relationships with them. We're looking at different housing options for our care leavers. We recognise that one size doesn't fit all. Not all of our young people are ready to just live on their own the minute they reach 18. Some are happier sharing, some need some sort of training flat. So we are having all of those conversations, and we are developing some of those things for our care leavers. So we're making there's some good offers being offered to care leavers. They're not being offered, I'm not saying it never happens, but they're not. It's not a case of, all care leavers go to the 10th floor of that estate. Nobody else wants to live there. Our care leavers need to be given the same opportunities as everybody else, and to kind of know that they've got somebody to come back to when things are going wrong and when they need more support.
And as we've said with Christopher and the council before, that they become like extended family, cousins, and that. So if there is like a home where the people that are at uni or something who can share their experiences of what it's like living away and things like that. I mean, it'd be really good if the, as Laura says, like if we could feed into that local family. And I mean, whether Chair would agree that, you know, we as a committee could actually put a report forward to portfolio holder on that as well, about this is the feedback from our peer leavers, just to add our weight, as you say, to get our member buy-in on it, because it's okay saying words around this table, but we need to action that and make sure that it's heard in the people that can actually influence them. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Cotter.
Yes, just on page 22, unaccompanied asylum seeking children at month end. We've got a bit of a crisis at the minute, like with Ukraine, and I was wondering what is council capacity if we had a sudden influx, because we should absolutely do the morally right thing and accept our share of it. Let's hope it doesn't happen. It might, but we should. So is there capacity? And how much more?
You talk about children, so families are very different for children. So
Unaccompanied asylum seekers.
Unaccompanied asylum seekers. I think as Gentile said, we have 0.07 of our population, children population, with 31. But that's the expectation for Thurrock, to have 31 young people. We're always at our numbers because we're a port of entry, and so we're often transferring out. We never get transfers in. There's other local authorities surrounding us that are nowhere near their 0.07. So we will always aim to stay at our 0.07, but once we reach that, we will transfer out. If it then becomes an issue around all local authorities at 0.07, which is very unlikely, then of course I suppose there would be another conversation about what that number should be. But right now there's capacity across the country, other local authorities to take those young people.
Oh, thank you, Councillor Musgrave. Just to come back to Councillor Polly's question about how does this compare with the with the rest of Thurrock young people. I mean, there is data. I can't actually download it on my phone because I haven't got Excel on my phone, but there is on the Thurrock website under children and young people. We've got figures there. I mean, 2015 it was 4.8%, not in education, employment or training. So very different. Whether COVID has changed that, I don't know. But if you
say 2015.
Yeah, there's more up to date information if you click through to the government department, but I can't open that at the minute on my phone because I haven't got Excel. But yeah, it was 4 points. So there is a big difference between our looked after children and
is that children or is that chemicals?
No, it's all children. Yeah.
Because I think
I would think it's probably higher now.
Yeah, it's a different age. It's a slightly different age group. But if you do click through to the Department for Education need data, you'll be able to find comparable figures there. So
lovely.
Yeah.
Have you finished, Councillor Madden?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair. With regards to offering opportunities to the parents that the apprenticeship schemes within the council, which be sort of prioritise applications, the apprentices you've got, you will get just as will the ones that are in care get sort of what approach, because it won't be good for them in the long term jobs early. Or I don't know how, it's very difficult balance. Too much advantage, I don't know how you balance.
So what I have worked in the other local authorities is care leavers first. So you give them a bit longer to do the application, you give them more support to complete their application, and they're guaranteed. So those opportunities put them in the best in a competitive. So that's really for competitive employment, which is why the work experience is so important, or the government offer of Kickstart, because those are funded by the council, so you can have those and develop those programs supporting the care leavers. So that's how I've operated it in different local authorities. But we need that kind of we've got the vision, we need the policies behind that to kind of drive that forward, which that's the start really, is having that conversation with officers to say, can you all offer at least 1 or 2 work experiences in your department? Can you work up what that will look like? Is that 2 weeks in the Easter holidays, or is that 4 weeks summer holidays? What is it that your department will offer for? And those positions can be ring fenced because of care leaver experiences as well, in order to facilitate them being in a better position when they do apply for permanent employment or alternative employment. So sometimes it's just about giving. I have had young people who've had maybe 3 or 4 work experiences before they then get the employment, because they're just building up their CV, they're building up their references, things that you would take for granted maybe in a family home. And we're supporting through the Inspire Hub just the offer of doing your CV with you, making sure that you're writing the applications the right way. We're trying to promote that, and as Janet said, it's going in the right direction, but it's very slow, and we hope over the next 3 to 6 months to be making a bigger impact, and then working towards having a clear September offer for our young.
Do you work with other local authorities? So if you have a care particular interest, but there's no option in Thurrock, the local authority might have that as an offering, will you liaise like that?
I think probably you can think about the policies that they offer, but it is very difficult across kind of you might get exchanges, but you won't get, for instance, other local authorities promoting our care leavers, because they have their own cohort of care leavers. And I've worked in other departments where I have to say you haven't got the cohesion that you have in Thurrock. I mean, there is a cohesive council here, the housing offer, and our housing committees work and understand our care leavers better than any other local authority that I've worked in. So, and we're continuing to improve those relationships and that understanding, and that's what it takes, not just for housing, but across the council. So it takes quite a lot of shared understanding, so that everybody understands what it is to be a portrait parent, that offer, and I'm giving that not the first chance, it's the 10th chance, and working with your colleagues to make sure that they understand why that needs to be on. I don't know that you've got the same understanding or compassion if you were trying to connect you. There's nothing to prevent us or support a care leaver applying for a local authority and working or advocating there for care leavers who are not living in the Thurrock area. But it's obviously, it's easier if you think of it as a family. It's easier for the Thurrock to get a job in the Thurrock family business than it is for us to go and say, can you provide this young person a job in your family business over there when they've got their own children. So that's kind of the way to look at it, but that wouldn't prevent us from advocating and supporting the young people to do that.
So are you hoping going forward? Actual number of positions.
I think not just in apprenticeships, because there are different level apprenticeships. Most of the government start, but they're quite a high level, A levels and above. So what we want are bespoke opportunities to gain. I use work experience, but great roles that are bespoke. So we have got leaders who are in apprenticeships with them, and we have got a bespoke package that we're supporting for carriage, but we need to grow that so that it's not just one. There's a whole. These are the options, and these are the paths. This is what we're, and also that whole. I just think the opportunities could be there, but we've got to get in there now and make that vision a reality, which is it is a challenge.
Thank you very much. Is there any question? A question from the next.
It's not a question, more of a statement. But I think we've all been made aware of the National Social Workers Week and some of the initiatives that have been put out there to engage members as well to understand the working. I've got to say thank you very much to the foster families that are actually prepared to let members go and meet their families, and I mean that's humbling that you know you can invite members into your home and let us experience your families, and I find that I'm a bit emotional about it, to be honest. I think that's amazing, and I know amongst others and myself, we've signed up to part of it, and I'm sure members across the table have done the same. We it's really good that we've been invited along to it and made aware of them and that in time so that we can engage with and I think again when we're looking at recruiting social workers and that if you can sort of say that it's like you say it's a holistic approach, it's not just direct level and management level, it is member buy-in as well, just hopefully that will give you some more yardage when you are putting that recruitment in, that you can say, during this week we have these amount of members come to these amount of sessions, and I hope in some way that helps you do what you do. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. But before we go, I just want to clarify this place, page 28, 4.2, which is out of court disposal panel. Is it a new initiative or
No.
it's been ongoing?
No, that's ongoing.
Oh, okay, all right, thank you. All right. Item 7, IRO reports for children look after reviews. Can I ask officers to introduce the report and presentation?
Apologies, Chair, I'm going to have to move the recording, sorry. Wrong angle to.
Yeah, I'd just like to say my name's Ruth Murdoch, I'm the Quality Assurance Strategic Lead. Trevor was just going to present this. So it came out of our discussion last time, you may recall, we talked about plans and how maybe some young people weren't maybe some of the plans maybe were a bit dry. So we undertook to present to you some of the ideas and ways in which we're thinking of developing the service, and Trevor's responsible for the IRO staff and also child protection.
Okay, yeah, thank you for this opportunity to come and share with you. This is a really nice opportunity for us because it coincides really nicely with something we've been working on for quite some time, but also reflects some of the conversations that were held at the last committee meeting. Currently, as IROs or independent reviewing officers, we have to have a record that when we hold a review that meeting has happened. And it's a really important document because it reflects the hard work of social workers, foster carers, partner agencies, and really importantly the young people with regards to the plan that we have for them, with regards to the progress they've made, and also with regards to what the future holds. And the IRO handbook is kind of like the IRO Bible, really, and so that's what we make sure that we fulfil the requirements of that. And if we could have the next slide. Basically, what the IRO handbook suggests is that this record of meeting includes, but isn't just limited to, all of these points, and it has to cover a lot of areas. Some of these areas are really important to young people and children, and some of these areas are actually they really couldn't care less about whether or not they will be discussed, and they're not that interested in the discussions around it. And so, if we, again, next slide. So as a result, some of our minutes or some of our records of these meetings run to about 10, 15, sometimes 20 pages long. A lot of the information in it was to what children and young people are doing this. And we did a lot of work, one of the ROs in particular did a lot of work with children and young people. And it's really important I draw attention to the last one. It really wasn't clear who we were writing our records or our minutes for. Were they for the young people? Were they for children, or were they for the adults and the professionals that were attending the meeting, and were they really relevant to young people? So we can move on, please. So what we did is, as a group of, I'll introduce you to the IROs. So there they are, and as a group of IROs, we spent a lot of time. Or if we could go back one, sorry. It's really important that I maintain an air of mystery. But as a group, what we spent a lot of time talking to young people on involvement days, and what they told us really was about they didn't really understand their plan. They didn't really understand their minutes. And what we wanted to do is we really wanted to make our minutes relevant. We wanted to make them innovative, and to reflect the ambition that we have for Thurrock Children's Services. That we wanted our minutes to be the envy of every other local authority out there. And when we wanted to do something different, we wanted to do something innovative, but also we really wanted our minutes to reflect how proud we were of our young people, how proud we were of their achievements, and that we had lofty ambitions for them going forward. So we had caricatures drawn of all of the IROs. All of them had to submit a photo. That there was heavy use of filtering throughout that. And they all had a say on their physique and everything. So these are those are our rights, so we can move on. And what we wanted to do was create a record of children, of our reviews that were for our younger children, that were almost like a comic book, where the IRO would be talking the young person through their meeting. And it was really important that this was a personal document to them. So it made the young person feel like they were held in mind. Made the young person feel like they were important, that they were the centre of this story that the IRO was talking through. Okay, so if we could keep going forward, please. So our new format really is going to cover what's relevant to young people. So we're trying to make our minutes a lot shorter. We're trying to make them not babyish, but just clear and focus on what's important to our young people as well, with a clear commitment to our signs of safety language that we have in the local authority, so that we can have this real thread of getting a clear idea about trying to say to young people, getting a clear idea of young people's children's and young people's understanding, but also really important that they might read the minutes as well. Carry on, please. So it also allows us to introduce pictures. So it breaks up the words, it makes it a little bit more interactive for children and young people. But it also gives a message that the IRO put some real thought into the minutes, that it makes them really personalised for the young people. And again, it's all about holding our children and young people in mind. It's all about making something special and personalised to them. Also about including their favourite things, but including things like school, family time, things that are important as well. So we can move on. The next 2 slides is just to give you an idea. We're at the very early stages of this, as we're just embracing all this new technology. But this is one of our IROs called Rasmus. He's written, we're getting used to using new language, but if you have this slide, and if you could have the next slide as well, we've got the IRO as a centre of talking the young person through, using slightly different language, but making things really clear. And so all of the things on their plan are under certain headings. So we'll have an education in the school heading, a homes heading. We're trying to move away from the phrase contact, so we'll use the phrase family time heading and identity heading and all of those. And then we'll have a little bit of the IRO talking them through it. If we can go on to the next slide, because what we've developed for some of our older young people is that we didn't just want it to be something that was for young people. So what we've developed a letter that we send out to our young people, which is unique to them, is very much kind of personalised to them. But again, it's geared at being slightly for our older young people as well. And we've also developed a newsletter as well, which is again in the form of a newspaper as opposed to a comic. So it does have some pictures in there, but it's a bit more wordy. And if we move on, what we've got here for the next 2 slides basically is just an example of, if you click onto the next slide, it's just an example of some of the letters that we write to our young people. At the end of all of our letters, we will add all of our email addresses of the relevant people. We also contain the Thurrock pledge to young people in there. And we also have the mind of my own details, contact details at the end of all of our letters, so that people can share their views as well. Okay, we can just move on. So at the moment, we're selecting who we give this, who we provide these minutes to. That we're providing to children and young people in stable placements who the IRO knows well. We're really fortunate in the IRO service that we've got IROs that have been working for Thurrock for a long period of time. They know their young people really well. I'd like to think that they're really important figures for their young people because they are quite consistent. Spoke a bit about sometimes, the difficulties in recruiting social workers. We're really fortunate that actually got these IROs that are really committed to our young people. So we have a copy of the letter, which is pasted into our LCS summary discussion, which is the kind of recording system that we use. And then the comic style or the letter is saved under an attachment. And then in order to meet the legal requirements, the further information is added to the section titled "Do the following plans or records require updating following this review?" And in there we can add any kind of technical terminology and jargon. What we wanted to do was move away from social work language in minutes, so that we could put this on LCS and we could just make it basic and easy to understand. If we have the next slide, the feedback that we've had has been unanimously positive, that everybody prefers the new format. I think most people prefer it because it's shorter. But it's much easier to understand. But also feedback from one foster care was, one child was so proud of his review record that he stored it in his box of special memories. Rarely would we get young people reading their minutes, let alone storing them in a box of special memories. So for us, it means we're on the right track. We know that we kind of, if we move on to the last slide, we know that we're on the right track, but it's really in their early stages. As IROs, we're not as young and hip as we think we are, so we are trying to get used to new technologies and new ways of presenting information and getting quicker and more adapted using. At the moment, we're using PowerPoint, but we know that there are better publishing software out there that we need to get used to as well. Also, we need to get comfortable about leaving things out. I think that sometimes as social workers, we're quite happy to leave things in and use 1,000 words when maybe only 3 would do. So we need to get more comfortable around that. And also making sure that at the moment, partner agencies are quite happy, but we want to make sure that all partner agencies are really happy with it. And then how we can roll this out much wider across child protection, child protection and the child in need.
No, you've covered it. I mean, it has been embraced by the our independent reviewing officers, they've really, you know, in order to create those formats, it's taken quite a lot of going out of their comfort zone to do that. Some more for some than others. And as Trevor said, they are very committed to their individual young people that they work with, and it has sort of opened up a new dialogue. And along with things like Grange Water, those kind of events that our IROs have attended those events and been able to engage with young people in sort of activities which maybe informally, and so this has grown out of some of those things that we discussed at the last meeting. I mean, at the very start, what we did with they've all got cards which are sent out for their young people. So maybe, so that's got 1 second. Look. So you can check which one's which. So these are child protection chairs.
Sorry.
Child protection chairs and so those are sent out when they have their reviews, and they can also give them to other people, and they can have them in their wallet if they want to. So we obviously want to progress and develop it. That's in how we're working to try and make them young person friendly, child friendly.
It's about being really ambitious. This is quite to stray away from IRO formats and stuff. It is quite difficult. So this is us being ambitious, but actually it's also us being better than anywhere else and have that aspiration to be. You know, we want our minutes to be the envy of other local authorities.
I'd like my minutes like that.
Well, if you look at the pictures, some of the IROs haven't aged well through lockdown.
And so funny enough, my owners had that review, I think it was about 3 weeks ago now, and I got the invite to Object Connect to deadline, and actually I didn't realise that the new format. So, and my young person has autism, so when I read his plan before, I had to basically rewrite it in my own head before I read it with him and went through it with him. Whereas this time I was really surprised at the way it was written. It was written in the format that it was on the screen, it wasn't in a comic form, but I think that's because they know I have to deliver it to him rather than it. And do you know what? I was so impressed. I only did it today, so I haven't had time to email the IRO to just thank them. But the minutes were written in a way where he could really understand what was going on, where the plan before it wasn't. I had to sort of change it around and then do it, which I was fine with because that's all I've ever done before. So now I feel like what you've said, you've really taken in everything that was said in the last meeting and also everything that the young people said at Grange Waters, and it's much more accessible for all of our young people, whether they have disabilities or whether they have such, or even whether they've had trauma that's affected their understanding and their speech and language and all of that, which before I wouldn't have said that they were friendly for the young people to read and understand. And even some of the meetings, what was being spoken about, and afterwards I'd think, what's that like? And I'd have to re-explain it. Whereas now I feel like it is so much more child focused, which is actually why we're all here in the first place. So from my side, from even just reading that today, thank you. That has made, I probably took about 2 hours off of going through that plan.
And we will get better. I think that, this is not us saying we've done this and that, it's us saying we started doing this, but we will get better and we will roll it out better and we will get quicker at doing it. And we will get less frightened of doing it and real things. But yeah, it's small steps.
Can we see you on TikTok, Trevor? We feel the same.
I don't even appear on the Christmas video. I've been threatened that. But I'm really proud of our IRO service. I'm really pleased that I get to represent them. I think they do a great job, as do our CP chairs. And I think they represent our children and young people to the very, very best of their. And it's just nice that we can do something different and better.
And again, there's another book for anyone that's coming into the field to see an innovative authority that is looking to engage. But
I think we are, there's lots of changes going on in Thurrock that are really, really impressive, really, really exciting. So, lots of different things.
How often
We have to provide a record of every review we hold. So, but then we've got 301 children coming. It's a lot of reports, but we're really good to get our reports done on time and everything, and hopefully we'll get quicker and better at writing shorter reports that are more meaningful. It's a win-win situation.
How are they done like that? Their families.
Good writing individual reports, yes.
Probably less than what's been in draft reports.
Once we get used to doing things in the new way, I think it's taken them a little bit longer at the moment because they're just not used to cut and paste and send things to back, bring things to front, text boxes, all those kind of things. But my 10-year-old son can do in 5 minutes.
Okay. Yes, thank you. Is it 9:15?
It's 9.
Okay. Do members have any comments or questions? No? No. Okay.
So well done. It's work, actually.
Thank you very much for promoting social work week. I really appreciate that.
I think it's fabulous, and the opportunity, it needs to be said because you run some heroes all the time. Yeah, the MASH team has been amazing in a couple of things that I've been involved in recently, and yeah, I think we've got one of the hardest jobs in the world, genuinely, I do, because whether it's older people's care, whether it's children's services, it's a minefield out there, and some of the things that your staff experience and see, you know, it's very emotionally demanding of people, and I've had to, you know, to the point is checking that your staff are supportive and that, because sometimes it's not, you know, it's not all about the report writing and the process, is it? That you're human beings as well as the people you're looking after and supporting. So it's important.
So I assume all members agree members in agreement with the recommendations outlined with the report. Thank you. So we go to. Thank you. We now move to work program. The work program is included at page 43/44 of the agenda. As this is the last meeting, does anyone have anything they wish to add for the first meeting of the new municipal year?
We're currently in the process of rewriting the corporate parenting strategy.
Okay.
We'll obviously need to meet with church corporate parenting here to have a look at the programme. So we're developing the programme in terms of what we think we should be presenting to you, but you may have ideas of things that you want us to focus on.
At the moment.
Wanted to have a different structure in the new year as well, so it's a little bit. It'd be difficult, but it would, I don't think it'd be fair for us to set the agenda at the moment.
Sorry to interrupt. It may be worth, if members are happy to, as a committee, to agree that perhaps officers maybe pull something together, for example, for the first meeting, agree that with the chair outside of the meeting, then obviously at the first meeting, if it is a new members, then obviously that committee can decide what they'd like for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
What do you think? Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I think if I was an incoming chair, at least they'd have something to look at as format. Yeah, so I think it'd be helpful. I mean, it may well be same chair, but it's just in case. You never know.
Yeah.
And there are some things that we have that are yearly, so we'll look through the over last year's, I can look, see what we think should be presented at the next one.
Some of them mandatory, like from-
Some of them, yeah.
Yeah, so we've got this.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. That concludes the business of the meeting this evening. And I now declare the meeting closed at 21:05. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
And I do hope, I think yours